Germans have a cultural tendency to name things directly, and being back here is sharpening that instinct, so I'm going to say it plainly. Trying to save American democracy right now is like trying to resuscitate a corpse. The vital signs are gone. The Constitution's no longer breathing, and yet the national instinct is to still pretend that the patient just needs one more push. But once the body's cold, CPR is not an act of hope. It's an act of denial. Before anything else, this moment needs a definition. Let's assume that there are three phases in the failure of a democratic system. The breakdown, the loss of institutional function, guardrails, and corrective mechanism. The reckoning, the psychological recognition of that breakdown. And the aftermath, where rebuilding is possible if the factual record survives. America is right here, in the period after the breakdown but before the reckoning. The system has already failed. What you're witnessing now is the erosion of outward forms that remain. It's an empty shell. Why does this orientation matter? Because without it, we're going to misread the moment entirely. This narrow space here between a system's breakdown and society's recognition of it is the most unstable phase of it all. In this space, we reach for tools that no longer work and wait for signals that the system can no longer provide. This in-between is psychological in nature and provides two consistent signals. Signal one is behavior that assumes that the system is still functioning. People keep waiting for cues from institutions that can no longer deliver them. Expect courts to enforce limits, expect the next indictment to demonstrate accountability, expecting norms to reassert themselves, a next election to restore balance, basically acting as if guardrails still exist. Signal two is language that postpones recognition. You can hear it in phrases like, "We'll see in 3 years. Let's wait for midterms." They reflect the belief that the system will deliver a definitive verdict at the next scheduled checkpoint. But a failing system does not correct itself on a calendar. And it's something that people in any failed democracy have said, right before realizing that the confirmation they're waiting for will never come. And by the time they stop waiting, their ability to assess the situation accurately has slipped out of reach. This is why the reckoning and the recognition first must begin. Without that reckoning, the aftermath cannot arrive, and the nation will not learn. As a German, this is hard to say. Our own delay with reckoning cost us decades of distortion. As Americans, this must be even harder to hear, because it violates the story you were raised on. From the first day of school, the anthem before every game, from the movies and the monuments and the vocabulary of everyday life, you grow up inside a myth of exceptional stability and inevitable progress, and of automatic self-correction. This myth, in my opinion, is your greatest liability. And it's in great part why and how you got here in the first place. And I genuinely believe that no society can grow while holding on to the belief that they're exempt from the vulnerabilities that shape every other nation on Earth. And here's what's absolutely essential and necessary to remember. Once a democratic structure is gone and has been infiltrated, acting as if it can be revived wastes the precious time you need to learn the skills required for the reckoning. This moment must matter in American history. This might be the first crisis America truly cannot outrun. And it's the first one that fully and openly exposes the cost of never having reckoned before to the entire world. Every major rupture before this one was absorbed without national accountability. Events were softened, renamed, or folded into a story of resilience. And if America treats this moment like previous rupture, then this breakdown will not become the end. It will become the template. This moment cannot be rewritten, and it cannot dissolve into euphemism. How do we make sure that that doesn't happen? The essential task is to shift the focus of the effort. Protesting, signing petitions, calling representatives, all of these actions still matter. They steady people and create connection, they show resistance, but they will not repair the structure that is in shambles. And they will not bring back the pulse. They are important, but they're not the only work required now. This moment demands a different layer of responsibility beneath the visible civic actions. To stabilize at a micro level what you can, to preserve what must not be lost, to support people who still hold essential roles, and by building small democratic habits that will carry you through what comes next. In other words, you need to start putting up the civic and psychological scaffolding now, so that you have a reliable foundation from which to grow, understand, and repair once this era is over. This is where I might be of actual use, especially now that I can safely do this. We can talk about documenting reality in a landscape designed to distort it, how to build resilient networks of mutual care, how to preserve accurate records. I'm so serious. how to create daily practices for recognition and remembrance, and how to steady ourselves emotionally throughout this process, because it's not easy. Those are not heroic acts. These are survival acts, and informed by German history. They will be the groundwork for an accurate historical record and democratic imagination. I'm not saying any of this because I don't care. I'm saying these because I do. You might feel grief, numbness, disbelief, even anger. All of this is normal. You have an enormous task ahead of you, but you are not powerless. Your responsibility now is not to save a system that's already gone. It's to lay the foundation for whatever comes next. Not imagined, not inherited, and for once, finally understood. Germans